Welcome to Very Rich Stories, where you will see stories of betrayal, secrets, and twists in real life. And now, he gave my diamond to his mistress, and I made them both pay. Users and losers. This is the story of the curse of the traveling diamond. My name is Mercy, and you may have seen some of my story before, but some people don't know when to stop messing with you. So that means that you've got to handle things that need handling. I was married to a man named Ron Hart. When I met Ron, he was the kind of man who said things like, "I'll never let anything happen to you." When he was his polished self, he always said the exact right thing. I believed him. Ron had the appearance of wealth, the suits, the watch, the cars, the easy confidence. Dating was a whirlwind. We took frequent trips. We took the train to New Orleans, just for a couple of days and a couple of beignets. We flew to Denver, strolled by the luxury boutique shops in Cherry Creek, one of the affluent areas of the city with the finest, most expensive shops. We stayed in probably the nicest suite in the Brown Palace Hotel, with all the amenities. It was there that we went to an amazing jewelry store. We browsed the store as he got an idea of what kinds of settings I'd like for an engagement ring. My finger was sized. It was still early in our relationship, so I didn't think much of this, just a simple nudge of intention. He was trying to impress me, and it worked. Ron had the affects of wealth, an elegant home, designer suits, imported watches, cars, charm. We took nice vacations and enjoyed frequent luxury travel, weekend trips, Breckenridge to ski, New York City for dinner and a Broadway play, Santa Fe just because it was there. But what he really had was performance, and a talent for illusion, more like a magician than an actor. I wasn't poor either. I came into the marriage with my own success. I had a career, savings, and a car I adored. A vintage Mercedes SL, the kind that purred like a secret. But it seems that I wasn't the one with the secret. It was Ron. And he had more than just one secret. Eventually, or I should say quickly, we got married. After marriage, he said, "We don't need multiple cars. Drive one of mine. That car is really nice, but I think it will attract too much attention and make people wonder how we afford it." I thought, afford it? I own this car already. But then I thought of that submissive wife thing and agreed with him. He's the leader. So I sold my car, and the proceeds became marital funds. One of many things I shouldn't have given up. Back then I thought it was unity. Now I know it was control. My engagement ring? A 5-carat round brilliant diamond, D-color, internally flawless. Excellent cut, set in cathedral-style platinum. The jeweler had called it museum quality. Appraised at $685,000, more than some people's houses. I know, because Ron had showed me the appraisal documents to be sure I understood how pricey this stone was. But this diamond was not just a stone, it was a vow. We married in a church wedding and had our reception in a garden at sunset. My ring? The stone was in the setting that I loved from the store in Cherry Creek. He remembered my exact preference of settings, and Ron said it had been in his family for years. When sunlight hit it, it sang, and so did my heart, just to think someone cherished me this much. When candlelight touched it, it turned to ice. My diamond had personality. It had life. Value? $685,000. But to me, it wasn't about money. It was about love. We looked perfect. The wedding, the smiles, the vows, all platinum and promise. But under that shine, there was something small and mean. And in the end, my husband's diamond heist was epic. He took it right in front of me, and I didn't even see him do it. Worse, he then gave my diamond to his mistress. I didn't scream. I sued them both. 6 months in, Ron asked to use my American Express card, just for a little business thing. I said no, politely. I didn't understand how a man with his seeming wealth and who had given me a ring of that great value could need to borrow anything, much less a credit card. So I said, no, very gently, very politely, half believing that he was kidding. He smiled too easily. And from that day on, something shifted. He didn't argue. He didn't pout. He just started handing me milkshakes. "You know what would be fun?" he'd always say. "If we got some milkshakes from the Dairy King. It'll be a little celebration of us." And celebrate, we did. Lunches out, dinners out, desserts. I thought it was romantic. Then I realized he was fattening me up, feeding me to make me gain weight. Soon, I felt my ring get tight, painfully tight at times. At first, I had to take it off before bed, else the weight of it would hurt my finger by morning. Then I had to take it off because it felt like it was tightening around my finger. I have slim fingers, always have. But this thing was like it was alive. It was like it was morphing and changing sizes during the day, getting tight like a vice, like it was punishing me. It was troubling. Then one morning, the ring was gone. The silk dish on my nightstand was empty. I know I left it there. I know because I did the same exact steps every night. I tore the house apart. I had mixed emotions about it. That was the most painful ring I'd ever worn in my life. Did I even want it back? But then, it was so expensive. But I know a lost piece of jewelry, a lost gift, especially a wedding ring, signifies a lot more than what it looks like, and especially to an insecure man. This one, he will be hurt, emotional, devastated, and then may accuse me of not caring about him because I don't know where the ring is, suddenly. I dreaded telling him that I didn't know where it was. I was more than sure it was insured, but would I ever hear the end of this? After 2 weeks of looking on my own, I finally told him. He helped me look. We never found it. He told me maybe it'll turn up. What? I thought to myself, grace? He preached grace, but he was not one to give it. In the meantime, not to look unmarried, I wore another solitaire-styled ring from my jewelry box. A costume piece, a cocktail ring, essentially. He didn't seem to care. I was both surprised and suspicious that he didn't make a big deal about this lost, expensive ring. One night, I overheard him in his study on the phone speaking very softly, but frustrated. No, man, it didn't work. It didn't work, so I had to get it back. I had to take it from her. It was wasted on her. What was he talking about? Did he have my ring? What does he mean it didn't work? One day, Ron had another of his good ideas like the milkshake at night ideas, only far, far worse. He made it seem like this idea would absolve me of the sin of losing the ring that he had stolen from me, pretending it was lost. He intimated that he'd be happy with me again, or at least happy if I did this thing that he was about to ask me. He said, "You know what would be fun?" That's how he introduced every bad idea, only this one would be foul. He said, "You know what would be fun? You're my wife and we are married, so why don't we do it in the church?" I was appalled, taken aback, stunned, shocked, and immediately said, "No, no way." He dropped it quickly, so I'm sure he was just kidding, right? I tried to convince myself. I continued to look for that ring every day. Then one day, more than 2 months later, it showed up, in Ron's hand in a little black ring box. He said, "Surprise, I had matching ring guards made to protect it. You're too precious to lose." Did he mean me or the ring? I had to make sure the guards butted up to the ring just right. I cried, thanked him, but there was still something unsettled in the back of my mind. Why did he pretend he didn't know where the ring was? And how could he pretend for so long? In spite of this seemingly thoughtful gift, I noticed that Ron had begun to cool toward me. Thank goodness the constant eating and snacking was over, but he seemed distracted. He was gone more, and he didn't ask me to go with. That was unusual because he always insisted that I go with him everywhere he went, even when I didn't want to go. This Ronald was different than the dating Ronald and different than the newly married Ronald. He went from being belligerently angry about the slightest thing to being totally wounded over nothing, exclaiming that no one understood him, like he was either having a meltdown or having or feigning an entire breakdown. His acting chops were slippery and greasy like diner pork chops, but it didn't stop him from trying. Ron had told me that he wanted to be an actor. But his dad forbade him, stopped him, even came and got him off a rehearsal stage in Colorado, where he had been living, and made him come back to Olive Branch, Mississippi to continue in the family business. I would have to come to know that this man's feelings are hurt all the time, maybe every day and all day. And when his feelings are hurt, he plans and usually enacts revenge. He is a fan of silent, sneaky revenge, and would be heard more than once saying this to an audience of people that revenge is a dish best served, cold. I could say he began to cheat, but he may have never stopped cheating. I looked the word cheater up in the dictionary, and yes, his picture was there. People he knew were angry with me for no reason, even when I would first meet them. I would come to find out because he had dated all these folks and had jilted them, blaming it on me when I knew nothing about any of the people he previously dated or if he was still dating any of them. But I no longer trusted him. What did he mean? It didn't work on her man, I had to get it back? Ron, whose middle name meant a gift of God, was already the worst husband any woman could want. If he was a gift, he was the worst gift ever, and he didn't seem to be from God, in my opinion. But he played nice at the right time, like he was in an acting role. Looking back, I see his father tried to tell me. One day his father said about dating and marriage, only those who act the best can get a spouse. Ron glared at his dad when he said that, but I didn't know why. Wow. I took that to mean that I should make sure I wasn't acting, that I should check myself to make sure I was being authentic and real. So taking my father-in-law's words as wisdom, I was a little in awe. This must be how this family lives. I always endeavored to do better and live better, so I tried to become and remained the realest me that I could. What I didn't know is that in all the months my ring was missing, Ron had taken my ring to a jeweler. Oh no, not to get ring guards made, for an entirely different reason. He had it remounted in a new setting and used that same diamond, my diamond, to propose to his mistress. He told her it was a family heirloom. She said yes, he was still married to me and had swapped my real heirloom quality diamond out for cubic zirconia. Dang, he could have at least gotten moissanite. No, he got glass. I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but now it makes sense as to why he didn't ask for a $685,000 family heirloom ring bank. I began to notice how he wanted to enact revenge on everyone around him, even for small slights or perceived hurts. And his son, you'd better not say anything to his 5-year-old son. Correct him or tell his dad on him. Then you became enemy number one, and the emotional or financial or other combat would begin. Ron could smile in the face of someone who he had decided had done him or his son wrong for weeks and weeks while he planned his revenge. The intended victim would never see it coming. I was the victim more than once. When someone tells you they want you to marry them because their child also needs a mother, you tend to believe them. I had the nerve to treat the child like a child who needed teaching and sometimes correction. Mistake. Well, in Ron's eyes, his kid was atrocious. So I wasn't the only one. One Sunday morning at children's church, his son had a tantrum and flipped a chair he should have been seated in, almost hurting the kids seated next to him, and then said he was going to tell his daddy on the teacher for not letting him out of children's church to roam the hallways. Anyway, said the kid, "It's my daddy's church, and I can do whatever I want to do." His daddy's church? Oh, I didn't mention that this petty man was the pastor? Well, churches don't belong to individuals, but this kid thought so. Well, there he is. He plays humble behind the microphone, and he is something else entirely the rest of the week. And you'd better not correct his kid even if you think you're part of the village. No, the village is to raise the other people, the other kids, not his kid. That was the day I heard him say to the kid, "Son, Sister Smith said what to you?" The kid recounted his version of what happened. Sister Smith was not present in this tribunal, just the pastor and his son. I wasn't a part of it either. I just happened to overhear the conversation. Then the pastor said, "Don't worry, I'll get her. Just give me 2 weeks." The kid smiled, his dad hugged him, and then they planned which of the latest video games the kid would get as a reward. I'm not sure why the kid was being rewarded. One night at home, Mercy overheard Pastor Ron on speakerphone lying to his ex-wife, the boy's mother. The entire conversation was heard. His ex didn't even ask him anything. He simply voluntarily told her lie after lie. I shook my head. I've never seen such behavior. We divorced quietly. Well, quietly for me. He told the church all kinds of lies about me, some of which I don't know to this day, and none of which were worth dignifying with an answer. Here is one thing he could not say about me, however. After the ring was lost, and I was feeling as guilty as ever, with his help. He'd look at me accusingly or pitifully every day, like I was some irresponsible kid that should be punished. The irony. The 5-year-old child, his son who should be disciplined, is not. The child is defended. While the adult who should receive forgiveness and grace, he wants to punish the adult. One thing he definitely cannot say about me is that I ever participated in his so-called fun-defiling ideas. In the church office, another night after service, Ron said, You know what would be fun? You're my wife and we are married, so why don't we do it here? Right here. No one will know, just us. Oh God, not that again. He wasn't kidding. I was appalled, taken aback, stunned, shocked, astonished, and repulsed, and immediately said, "No, no way." Then he came close and tried to be seductive, saying we could do it on the steps leading to the pulpit and it would be our little secret. Hell to the no. Satan, I'm not your sacrifice, I thought to myself, and repeated, "No way." I treated him as if I thought he was kidding, but really he had exposed his perverseness. Where would anyone, and most of all a pastor, get such an idea? Not just me or him, but he wanted to defile the church and the pulpit? I needed to get away from this man. Once I refused to participate in his perversion, he stopped the nice act toward me completely and became either who he really was or the meanest version of himself to make Mercy walk away. Calmly, she did. He then played the victim, the humble, hurt victim, now ready for the next woman or wife. Mercy is ready for her escape, her freedom, and her peace. She hasn't chosen another man, but she chose herself, her own future, not one chosen for her. He left with his lies and his pride. I left with a signed decree and drove off in a car like the one I had driven there in. That had been my only request. I arrived in a certain car. I told him, "Make me whole with that same car, and I will gladly leave peacefully." I was shocked. He agreed. Maybe he really wanted me gone. Well, by now I really wanted to go. So we struck the deal about the car. Eventually, I went back to live in the state where most of my family resides, and that is when I found out something very unsettling and actually corrupt. A few months after the divorce was finalized, I went to insure the ring. I wouldn't want to wear it as a ring anymore, and considered that I'd make it into a pendant or something. I was still thinking about my options while the jeweler was examining it. But then he frowned. "Ma'am, this isn't a diamond. It's a cubic zirconia." My stomach dropped. A who? A what? He tested the mounting. The serial number didn't match my appraisal certificate. He traced it through the registry, and there it was, a work order. Ron's name, Ron Hart. The day after my ring disappeared. Ron had stolen my stone. He had taken the ring, swapped out the stone for a piece of glass, and gave the ring back to me without conscience. "Oh, look," said the jeweler, just as calm as you please. He had obviously seen it all. Mr. Bayard Hart then placed an order for another diamond solitaire. This one engraved to Clarissa. "Always, Ron. You're not Clarissa, right?" He gave my diamond to his mistress, and I'd find out that he did far worse than that. Mercy was silenced, but only for a moment. A roaring whisper rose in her and poured out, "My diamond. He took my diamond from me and gave it to another woman while we were still married." "Ma'am, it looks that way." Mercy took the cubic zirconia ring, put it in her purse, and with a strength she didn't even know she had, walked out of the store. Back then, we looked like the perfect couple, the kind you see on glossy magazine covers, all smiles and sparkle. But you never know how deep the cracks go until you fall through them. My husband gave my diamond to his mistress and tried to steal from me and destroy my credit on his way out. That's when I stopped crying and started suing. He had said the day we got married, "No wife of mine will work," so then I didn't work. I was past bored at home, so when we weren't traveling, I decided to freshen up the house. It was a beautiful home, brick exterior, classic bones with old money features and charm. But the interior paint was so old, it is like it was the original paint on the walls from when the house was built. So old, the colors had come back in style again, but it was dull and drab from hanging on those same walls for decades, witnessing Ron's moods and mood swings, no doubt. That paint had seen and heard every fight with his ex as well. The paint looked exhausted, and Mercy understood. So she decided to freshen up the place, one room at a time. He was furious. Mercy didn't know why, but she had learned to tune him out. She liked the new paint. Ivory. Who could not like ivory? Especially since it is the color that was already there. It was now just fresh and clean and new. This was one of their first fights, and it lasted several days. Mercy didn't know why, but Ron liked to hang on to things, feelings, emotions, hurts. And now, possibly, old, dusty, chipping, faded paint. How can fresh paint that has no smell, didn't cost them anything, and didn't inconvenience them at all, hurt a person? Once he was through with his latest tantrum, he would resume speaking to me again, seeing me, acknowledging that I existed. He could go for weeks without looking at me, talking to me, or remaining in the same room with me. I learned not to care and decided to busy myself with practical and entertaining things. Some months later, now that he was not angry anymore, or the act had to resume because he now wanted something from me, he became friendly again. This time, Ron wanted to know if he could borrow $50,000 from me. Wait, I sold my car, the marriage absorbed the profits, and now I don't work, so I cannot provide any more money to the marriage, especially since Ron insists on being the leader. Then lead. Bro man, lead. And Ron, I whispered again, as gently as possible, I don't work. You told me not to work. So I declined. Again, politely. I thought he was well off. Where is his own savings account? Why didn't he have money again? How did we take all those trips when we were dating? I had contributed very well to the household marital funds when I sold my $100K car. Why am I wearing such an expensive ring if he doesn't even have $50,000? How is this possible? He smiled, said, no problem, babe. But I saw something flicker behind his eyes and the corner of his lip twitched in a way that he couldn't control. He didn't argue. He just got creative. This must have been when he planned to take the ring back. Every week became milkshakes, desserts, celebration nights, until my ring started to feel tight. Painfully tight. I had never had a ring to feel like that on my finger before. It was like a vice. Then my finger would sweat under that ring. So I took it off before bed every night and put it on the nightstand. After a couple of weeks of this, one morning, the ring was gone. What was I going to do? To a man like this, if he has the ring, and I suspected he did, this meant he was taking it back and he was planning to leave the marriage. Well, all I can do about that is pray, so I did. Then I decided to paint another room. Art and related things are therapy to me. I saw fear in his eyes. Why? Then it dawned on me. He was afraid that I might find something in that house that he didn't want me to see when I moved things around to paint. Then one day in the bookcase in his study, I found an entire row of books behind the obvious row of books. The back row was all about dating and being charming and wooing women and how to act in the company of others, how to be charming, how to date, how to wow women. Oh, brother, I looked through a couple of these books and noticed his marks and highlights. These were exact dates we had been on when we dated. Exact. Even down to the words he spoke to me. The carriage ride on our first date, the leisurely walks, the romantic kiss at just the right location and moment. He used the directions and scripts in these dating books on real people. On me. No wonder there were so many different Ronalds and Rons. He's acting. This man is a total fake. Even though his father told him to stop acting, he was still acting. I was so angry I tore those books to the floor and just left them there, walking out of that room. Not to be childish, about an hour later I returned to the room and put the bookcase back together, so he never knew that I knew about his secret, how to be charming stash. Months later, the ring reappeared. In Ron's hands, in a velvet box. Ron said he'd used it for a surprise upgrade. A pair of diamond guards to make it sparkle even more. I believed him, and I believed we were back on track. Even though with the guards, this ring would be heavier than ever on my ring finger. But I put it back on, them, the ring and the 2 guards. Soon after getting the ring back, I overheard him in a hoarse, hushed whisper late one night in his study. Has this man turned me into a stalker? Anyway, he said, yeah, I got it back. No worries. Everything is under control. I don't know if I was breathing too heavily or if he heard my heartbeat, but he hung up suddenly. I heard silence for a moment. Then he made another call, speaking very sweetly. Clarissa, hey babe, I couldn't sleep. All I do is think about you. He said some more stuff that was obviously out of one of those dating books. I wanted to gag. Yes, we will be together soon. You like your ring, babe? I just have to tie up some loose ends. I'm going to get her savings and retirement accounts. She has no idea. In the meantime, babe, could you spot me about 10 grand for the lawyer so I can finalize this divorce? She must have said yes, because he sighed and moaned like they were in the middle of something obscene. Yeah, babe, send me another pic. Yeah, I got the Zelle. We will be together very soon. No, you hang up first. OMG, how old are these people? I was about to tiptoe back to our bedroom when he made a third call. "Hey, man," he said. "It's working. It didn't work on Mercy, but it works just fine on Clarissa. We are back in business. Okay, I gotta go before Mercy knows I'm not in bed." That was my signal. I left hurriedly back to bed, and even though I didn't want to be an actress, I pretended to be asleep. Once he was in bed and had started snoring, I stared at the ceiling, wondering, who is Clarissa? They are going to be together? Whoa. What didn't work on me? Who was he calling at all hours? And what was working on Clarissa? When I finally walked away, I told him I want my car back, or one equal to it. To my surprise, he agreed. Even quickly. 2 weeks later, he delivered a silver Mercedes coupe, newer, shinier, maybe even better. For a moment, I thought, maybe closure isn't always ugly. But a week after the divorce, and back in my own town, right after I got back home from my jeweler telling me my diamond was fake, my phone rang. A banker's voice, polite but firm. "Ma'am, your account has an unauthorized account and there are withdrawals pending. Also, your vehicle loan is past due." I thought I misheard. I called the dealership. I called the bank back. The truth landed like a hammer. Ron had financed the new Mercedes in my name with only 10% down. The banker explained to me that Ron had only put 10% down and financed the rest on the Mercedes coupe in my driveway, in my name. No, he didn't. But he had. $112,000 in debt. I had already paid for my Mercedes coupe when I married Ron. He promised me another one, not another one that I had to pay for. And what are these pending transactions the banker is talking about? My credit, my signature, my problem. Or don't pay it and have no car. I hung up the phone, shaking. From the banker, I learned that Ron had also opened a bank account in my name, without my knowledge, signing documents that bore my forged signature. He was trying to siphon money from my real premarital savings, brokerage, and retirement accounts into the new fake account that bore my name and also his. The bank account had transfers, loan payments, and fees moving through it. From there, he had planned to then transfer the money into an account that only had his name on it, out of my reach. Does this man ever stop? This was identity theft, forgery, fraud. My credit was at risk. My savings were at risk. I hadn't even worked for the past few years because I was married to him. I couldn't afford to lose any more. My name had been used as a ledger. I called my older brother to talk it through. Surely he would know what to do, or at least offer emotional support in this latest betrayal. When I told him the balance, he laughed lightly and said, "Tell you what, I'll give you 50 grand and I'll take the car off your hands." How is that supposed to help me? You won't owe $112,000. It will only be about $50,000. "Randy," I said to my brother firmly, "owing $112,000 and then selling it for $112,000 is a wash if I sell it for what it's worth, or give it back to the bank. But I will have no car. If I give it to you for $50,000, then I still owe $50,000 and still I would have no car. So it wouldn't make sense to sell the car to you." Randy got angry and said, "Well, if that's the way it is, then figure it out yourself," and hung up the phone. That's when something inside me snapped. Who the hell are these people right now? Everyone was trying to profit off my peace. My husband, well, my ex, his side piece, and even my own blood. And that's when I stopped talking and started filing. So I did what Ron never thought I would. I lawyered up, I hired legal counsel, I hired the best lawyer I could find. First lawsuit. Theft and fraud. The court ruled that the diamond was marital property. Ron had no right to give it away. The mistress was forced to surrender the ring as stolen goods. The diamond came back to me. The fraud and theft suit. Ron was charged with theft of marital property and credit fraud. The court confirmed he'd stolen my diamond, forged my signature on car financing, and defrauded me out of both assets and trust. That was bank fraud. He opened up accounts in my name after the divorce. The judge would see this as contempt of court, along with all the other infractions. We filed civil suits and worked with prosecutors on criminal referrals. Counts and claims filed, conversion and theft of marital property, the diamond, fraud and identity theft for forging my signature and opening accounts, credit card and loan fraud for placing car financing in my name. We had receipts, work orders, bank records, and an expert jeweler's appraisal. We had timelines tying Ron to the remounting and to the forged paperwork. The courtroom was quiet when the judge read the findings. Ron was found liable for conversion and fraud. Criminal charges for forgery and identity theft proceeded, and prosecutors secured a plea for restitution and fines. He was ordered to pay the full appraised value of the diamond or get the diamond back, punitive damages for the fraud, and restitution for the fraudulent car financing. His assets were frozen pending collection. He got probation for the bank fraud, since he never got away with taking anything out of my account. However, the judge found him guilty of contempt of court and made him spend 3 days and nights in jail for using my name in financial matters after the divorce and for rage-filled outbursts in court. And he had to issue a public apology to the court and also to me. The court described Ron's conduct as calculated and predatory. Judgment, over $750,000 in damages. Second lawsuit, alienation of affection. I sued his prissy mistress, Clarissa. Alienation of affection, civil action against the mistress. Mississippi is a jurisdiction that still permits it. Thank you, Olive Branch. We proved she knew he was married and still accepted stolen marital property. When the judge read the verdict, her face turned the color of ashes. She owed me damages. As a result of the alienation of affection suit, the court ordered Clarissa to surrender the ring and pay damages of $200,000. Her crocodile tears couldn't polish what wasn't hers. Ron owed me everything else. Then I told the story. Calmly, publicly, truthfully. I uploaded my video on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere I could. He gave my diamond to his mistress. No yelling, no insults, just evidence, receipts, the jeweler's report, the court papers, my voice. Within a week, on all platforms, it hit nearly 2 million views. Women everywhere commented, "You're not bitter, you're brilliant. That's how you do revenge." I did revenge better than Mr. Revenge himself. My revenge was legal. It wasn't petty or evil like his. My revenge was justice. Ron lost his job. Once all this came out, the deacon board finally realized that he was no longer suited to serve, but I had suspected it long before they found out. The mistress lost her ring. She broke off the engagement. And I gained something priceless, my peace. I went back to live among my people, but I was changed. I was not going to be used by anyone anymore, even by relatives. I went back to my previous career, but I was different. So, just as a side business, I started a jewelry brand called True Setting. All pieces made from reclaimed stones, recycled platinum, and truth. Real love doesn't come from stolen things. My first design? My recovered diamond. Now a pendant engraved with one word, vindicated. Not to capitalize on the pain of any other woman, but to assist them in keeping and continuing to use what they own, but no longer can celebrate even diamonds and other precious stones that they were gifted and own. It was a boutique and custom enterprise, and it started out with one. After I told my story, 5 women reached out, then 10. The rise of my business was organic. With orders coming in, soon I had to hire a staff, a jeweler, a jewelry designer, and craftsmen. The pieces were stunning, so I hired a professional photographer to memorialize each piece, each woman, each story. And in the story of my story, the photography was spectacular. An art gallery hosted the show as we raised money for women who are unceremoniously kicked out or dismissed from marriages, especially after their husbands have insisted that they not work. I was fortunate, but so many of those women become poor, stranded, helpless, or controlled, especially if they have children to take care of. Ron thought he could take what I had and rewrite my life into his ledger. He forged my name. He gave my diamond away. He tried to steal from me even after the marriage was over, which makes me think he was planning to steal from me all along. He planned to bury me in debt. He was petty, small-minded, and mean. But when you document the truth has a way of finding its voice. And when it does, the scales tip. I didn't want his money. I wanted my name back. I wanted my life. I got both. True Setting jewelry born from truth. He gave my diamond to his mistress. He was hostile, irritated, said Clarissa was his real wife and she must have it. I gave them both the consequences. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be legal. I don't need a 5-carat diamond to shine. I am the diamond. I don't chase revenge. I file it. And I win. One day I received an anonymous letter from an unknown person in New Orleans, and what was in that letter made me drop my jaw, my coffee, and the very letter that I had in my hand. That stone, I whispered, That stone, and I must have fainted because everything went black. What about that stone? What happened to Mercy? Tune in to Very Rich Stories again to find out. Please like, subscribe, and comment. See you next story.